All right, good evening, everyone. Petman Matt Morrow welcoming you to Between the Lines, CFI's in-depth game preview show. We give you the most game previews and players to watch across the Charlotte metro area that are out there. Very excited to get into conference play for a lot of teams this week. Still got a couple teams with some non-conference games, but the majority are playing the conference this week. So, without further ado, let's jump in and start the preview. So, first one we got is Covenant Day going on the road to take on the Cabarrus Warriors. Covenant Day coming off a tough loss to Metrolina Christian, 13-7, and then the Cabarrus Warriors, I think, sent a few shockwaves, across the area with a big win over Concord, 49-21. A lot of people not aware of who the Cabarrus Warriors are in their story, but I think a lot more people know now. The players to watch I got here are Dane Steele. He's a big offensive lineman for the Covenant Day team, 6'5", 255 pounds. Obviously, if they're going to get a win over Cabarrus Warriors, they got a strong offense. They're going to have to find a way to ball control and keep that offense off the field. Conversely, for the Warriors, Will Jones is my player to watch. He is their starting running back. He had a really good game against Concord. I believe he had 100 yards rushing on the game, and he had the biggest play in the state. It's featured out on Twitter. I retweeted it. It was I think it was about 78-yard touchdown run. It was impressive. So, two teams. I think they're good teams. Cabarrus is off to a 2-0 start, Covenant Day at 1-1, so it should be a good football game. All right, our next game is RG Kell. This is a big one. Going on the road to Union County, taking on Porter Ridge, and it seems like RG Kell is kind of taking the Union County tour, but they're undefeated on that tour so far. Coming off a big win over Weddington last week, and then Porter Ridge has been out with the pandemic the past couple of weeks, but from what I understand, this is their senior night, so this is a very, very big game for them, obviously. Players to watch, Kyla Watson is a big defensive lineman that I like, 6'3", 245 pounds. Really has a good get-off, and obviously at that size, he can help control the line of scrimmage, which is really going to be important against this Porter Ridge triple option hybrid type of offense. And then for Porter Ridge, my player to watch is Stephen Syakowski. He kind of does everything for these guys. I mean, he'll kick return. He'll play some offense, at running back or the up back in that option system. But he really shines on the defensive side of the football, kind of a linebacker / strong safety hybrid type of kid. Very physical. He can do some things in space with the ball in his hands. Very athletic, and he's got a bright future ahead of him. So, obviously, you look at these, you got a contrasting styles. RG Kell offensively will spread it out a little bit more, and Porter Ridge is more ground-based. So, the big key right here, obviously, is which style is going to dictate the tempo. If Porter Ridge is able to run the ball, get first downs, control the clock, they're going to have their best chance of winning this football game. RG Kell has been very strong on defense, starting out the season. And they got another good test right here with this Porter Ridge team. This is a big game, too. Both teams are undefeated. Both teams are ranked in the Dirty Dozen. Hopefully everybody will stay healthy and have a great game. And I'm sure it'll be a packed crowd down there at Porter Ridge. All right, our next game is Chambers, coming off the win we were at last week over Hickory Ridge, taking on West Meck, who's coming off a loss to Harding. Chambers still undefeated. Obviously, they've moved up to number 14 in the nation in the High School Football America Top 100 poll, and West Meck's coming in at 3-1. All right, so our players to watch here for Chambers is Kevin Concepcion. I think this guy's a dynamite talent. He's a 3-star kid. I think, Chambers is really going to look to get him going this week. I love he said something on Twitter about letting the game come to him earlier today. I thought was awesome. Great perspective to have right there. And then for West Meck, defensive end DeMarco McClure is the player to watch. We interviewed Coach Waddell after their victory over Rocky River, and he said that McClure is the best defensive end in the state. So if you want to really make a name for yourself right here, this is the time to do it when you're playing the number 14 team in the nation. some things, have been said about Chambers, and, they were kind of off and this and that, but you got to keep in perspective, they played three really good teams. I mean, they're not playing, any chumps out here, to be honest with you. So, I think they're going to get it going this week. They're going to use this game to kind of get some things, in a rhythm and, really get going for conference play. Actually, this is conference play. I forgot West Meck is in, the adjusted conference. So, look for I'm sure it's going to be a great atmosphere over at West Meck, and hopefully everybody stays healthy and has a good game. All right. Our next game is going to be the Northwest Cabarrus Trojans going on the road to take on South Rowan. Northwest Cabarrus, another team that sent some shockwaves through the area, knocking off previously undefeated Mount Pleasant, 26-24. And then South Rowan's coming into this game at 1-3. So both teams have similar records. They're both 1-3 here as they open conference play. The players to watch: Northwest Cabarrus running back Zai Coleman. He was named the offensive player of the game for their victory over Mount Pleasant. So congratulations to Mr. Coleman. And then Wisdom Sims for South Rowan is our player to watch. He's a really good-sized kid. Plays on the interior of that defense. Can be very physical and will help, control the run game that Northwest Cabarrus will try to throw at South Rowan. But, Northwest Cabarrus is more of a spread team that could pose some problems for South Rowan, from a secondary standpoint. So they're going to have to find a way to get pressure on the quarterback to disrupt, what Coach Moorman likes to do on offense. I think this is going to be a close game. It's going to be a close game all the way. You got two teams I think are really on a similar level. This conference I think is the most wide open of any conference that's out there. So getting off to a good start is really going to be imperative for both of these teams here. And I think they realistically both have, conference championship aspirations. So it's a really big game for both of these schools right here. All right, our next game is going to be the Huff Huskies going on the road to take on the North Meck Vikings. And both of these teams are off to good starts. Huff obviously undefeated. They're number 89 in the High School Football America Top 100 poll. So Huff is also ranked in the Top 100. So it's really cool to have two teams ranked in the Top 100 right here in the Charlotte metro area. That's really awesome. And then North Meck is 3-1, and they're coming off a victory over Berry, 30-22 last week. So both teams feeling good right now. Players to watch: this is always a unique dynamic. Javion Knox, the running back for Huff, coming back to where he left from in the offseason. He was previously at North Meck and now has gone over to Huff and started playing over there. So I'm sure that's going to be a big thing for him coming into this one. And then for North Meck, Clark Brown, the linebacker, was one of the top 5 linebackers at our last CFI camp over the summer. We talked with Coach Vereen, defense coordinator, last week on Football Focus Weekly. He's been singing his praises. He's off to a really good start this year. So if North Meck's going to pull the upset on Huff, Clark is going to have a really, really strong game. The Huff passing game has really complemented the run game very, very well. You got to really pick your poison with Huff. Are you going to stop the run, or are you going to try to limit the pass? They've got weapons in both areas. Their offensive line has been doing a good job. Just looking at some film on those guys. I really love what Markel Quick has done at the receiver position also. And Tad Hudson has just been putting the ball in unbelievable spots against man coverage. Just incredible execution. And then the defense has just been lights out. I mean, a big one over Cox Mill, holding them to 7 points, and Cox Mill came into that game undefeated. So, Huff's really rolling, and they've kind of been on the radar because, everyone has kind of been focused on Chambers and their high ranking nationally and everything, and their big showcase games. So, it should be a good game here, and, hopefully everybody stays healthy. We got the big one coming up next week between Huff and Chambers. So, I don't think either one of those teams are going to look ahead, but it's always natural to get a little excited. All right. Our next game is Garinger going over to take on Butler. Our player to watch for Butler is Aaron Mciver. He's a big offensive lineman. I first noticed him when he was on JV, and he really dominated down there. And now, he's up on varsity and doing a really good job, for those guys. Butler was off last week, and so was Garinger. So both of these teams have had extra time to prepare for each other. From what I've heard, this is Butler's homecoming, so it's always cool to have homecoming. You wish it was a little cooler. The temperature's about 90 degrees still. Good gracious. But, hopefully all the Butler alumni come back and have a nice time. And, the key for Butler, obviously, is to, get up early and then make sure you get some of those, second teamers, some experience out there and on the field, because you're going to need those guys as you get deeper into conference play for sure. So, all right, our next game is Legion Collegiate going on the road to take on an undefeated Charlotte Latin team who continues to play well. They're 3-0 on the season. And their player to watch is Daniel Hotton, who we did an interview with not too long ago. He continues to shine. He had another great game last week in their latest victory, putting up numbers on both sides of the football. You always love those guys that can play both offense and defense. So he plays receiver on offense. He can play a little linebacker and DB on the defensive side of football. Legion Collegiate is struggling. They haven't picked up a win yet this year. But for Charlotte Latin, they got a chance to go to a 4-0 start, and stacking these wins up early is building that confidence. And when they get into deeper into conference play, because Legion Collegiate will join this league officially next season, so this will be a reoccurring game. Going into deeper into conference play, it's going to be very important that they have that confidence, because they're going to be playing teams like Raven Gap and Providence Day and Charlotte Christian. Some of the teams that were in the preseason predicted to be at the top of that league. So, but Charlotte Latin, I think they're going to continue to roll here and hopefully remain undefeated on the season. All right, our next game is the Concord Spiders going on the road to take on the East Rowan Mustangs. Traditional South Piedmont Conference matchup. Back when I was in the South Piedmont Conference back in the late 90s. Whew, boy, Concord, East Rowan were tough back then, man. I got stories, but I won't get into those. Concord's coming off a tough loss we mentioned earlier to the Cabarrus Warriors, 49-21. But they've got some talent on that team, and Jameson Hackett is a lineman, more so of a defensive lineman that can stand out for those guys and really do a good job and help control the line of scrimmage. Both of these teams are struggling a little bit right now. But once again, they're in that conference that, we say is wide open with Northwest Cabarrus and South Rowan, who we previewed earlier. So getting off to a good start is paramount. Conference play kind of resets things. Even though you lost a couple tough games in the non-conference, this is a fresh start. So we'll see which team comes out on top. All right, our next game is the Olympic Trojans coming over to Allegheny Street to take on the Harding Rams. Olympic is off to a 3-0 start quietly, while the Harding Rams are at 2-2 coming off a win over West Meck last week. Our players to watch here, Olympic has a new quarterback. His name is Elijah Holmes, and he's been playing well. He's a big reason why the Trojans are off to the great start that they're off to. He's been putting up some good numbers, throwing the football down the field, has some, several touchdown passes. Looking at some of his highlights, he's very efficient. He gets the ball out quick. They do a good job of that, over at Olympic. Quick reads, getting the ball into the playmakers' hands, and those guys are doing things after the catch with the football, so that's good stuff. For Harding, our player to watch is Diego Parks. He is the Harding Rams quarterback, and he's done a good job really getting yards with his feet. He's a true dual threat quarterback. He can throw the ball pretty good. He's hit Octavian Davis, their leading receiver, for some big games. He's had a couple of 100-yard games already. But when plays break down, he's able to scramble and pick up yardage, get first downs, keep drives moving. That's what he did last week in the game-clinching drive against West Mech, and he's done that all year long. So, shout out to Harding because, back in the spring they were really, struggling. I have to shout out, their coaching staff with Van Smith and L.J. Johnson. They've done nothing but work since the spring season has ended, and to see where that team is now from where they were in the spring is just an incredible job. So hats off to those guys. And this does start conference play for both of these teams. So once again, another very important game here. All right, our next matchup is the West Charlotte Lions at 2-0, going on the road to take on Mallard Creek at 1-1. All right, so West Charlotte did not play last week, and then Mallard Creek lost to Gaffney. I believe the score was 34-14. Our players to watch here are two running backs. For West Charlotte, it's number 3, Antares Carpenter. We talked to him after their win over Harding. He's very athletic with the ball in space. He's a game-breaking type of guy if you do not, contain him, at the line of scrimmage. And then for Mallard Creek, it's Tomar Bivens. And, of course, I've talked to Tomar a couple times throughout his career. He had an incredible run at Gaffney for a touchdown where, there was kind of a big pile up and, he was able to break out of that pile and go score. He's a very talented young man. And I think both of these guys are going to be really, really important for their teams to try to get a win this Friday night. You look at this matchup, it's pretty closely matched here. These teams are really ranked close in the CMS best to last that we do, our ranking of CMS schools every week. Both of these teams are more, kind of a spread-oriented team. Mallard Creek will look to run it a little bit more. West Charlotte is looking to throw it a little bit more, and it's a big change for Coach Griner, but obviously it's working for him so far. Big game for both of these teams here as they open conference play. All right, our next game goes back to Union County. We've got the Parkwood. They've changed their name, Wolfpack. Thank God it came to me. They're going to take on the Piedmont Panthers. And, let me tell you something, man. Parkwood's 0-1. They've been hit with the pandemic a bit down there. But Piedmont off to a good start, for those guys at 2-2. The new head coach has really come in and injected some energy in that program. And I know they knocked off Fort Mill last week in a, COVID rescheduled game. So hats off to those guys. Our players to watch here for Parkwood is Isaiah Mobley. He's a very talented wide receiver, one of Cameron Enos's favorite targets in their offense. And then Leighton Duke is the Piedmont Panthers' leading rusher. And, if they're going to get a win over Parkwood, he's going to be a big reason why. He's gone over 100 yards, I believe, in 2 games so far this season. And Piedmont is a run-first team, so if they're able to get that run game going and keep the Parkwood powerful offense off the field because they have some big playability over there, they can go, above 500. And I think this would probably be one of the first times Piedmont would be over 500 this late in the season in a long time. So, big Union County matchup. Hopefully there'll be a big crowd, and good luck to both teams. All right, our next game is the Providence Panthers going down to Memorial Stadium and taking on the Charlotte Catholic Cougars. It's part of the Big Friday event hosted by the Carolina Panthers. Very cool. Charlotte Catholic has played in this stadium, earlier this season, getting a victory over South Meck, while this would be Providence's first time playing at Memorial Stadium this season. Providence coming in at 1-2, and Charlotte Catholic coming in with a loss to Blessed Trinity last week, 28-10. Blessed Trinity out of Georgia, very talented team coming in and getting a win at Charlotte Catholic, which is very rare. Our players to watch in this game are both linebackers. Providence, John Ballas, very talented young man playing the outside linebacker spot. I think he's a sideline-to-sideline player, great physical size, and a leader on that side of the ball for the Panthers. And then conversely, for Charlotte Catholic, one of their leading tacklers, Luke Johnson is going to be very important to slow down that Providence run game, led by Jamar Price. On the other side, John Bowers is going to be trying to slow down a very talented wing T offense from Charlotte Catholic, who I'm sure is looking to get in gear early after only scoring 10 points last week. So, very cool experience playing at the stadium. Once again, shout out to the Carolina Panthers for putting that on. And, hopefully both teams have a great experience this Friday night, for sure. All right, our next game is the Myers Park Mustangs coming off a tough loss on the road at Buford near Atlanta, Georgia, taking on the Berry Cardinals, who are also coming off a loss, their first loss of the season, to the North Make Vikings. Our players to watch in this one are a pair of wide receivers. Kamarion Thornton, who I think is one of the best in the area. I had him ranked number 2 in the preseason CMS Best, and he's done nothing but back that up. I think he had a couple of touchdown catches last week in that Buford game. And then Christian McDonald, who we covered initially, I think week 1, when their victory over East Meck. He had a couple of touchdown catches in that game. So some very talented receivers going to be on display for both teams here on Friday night. And this game's at Berry. For Myers Park, they're going to look to try to, get their mojo going in the new conference for them. They switched conference. They used to be in the Southwick. Now they're in the SOMEC. And then for Berry, trying to get off to a good start in their conference opener as well. So good luck to both teams Friday night. All right, we got the Rocky River Ravens going on the road to take on East Meck. Rocky River coming off their first victory of the season, a big win over Sun Valley, 34-14. And then East Meck, coming off a tough loss last week. They've kind of had a bit of a change at the quarterback spot. Brock Fowler is now playing at quarterback, and that is our player to watch. We had him ranked in the CMS Best for tight ends, but, an injury sustained to the quarterback. Their starting quarterback is necessitated, Fowler moving over, being a team player. I think he threw a touchdown pass. They ran a trick play against Olympic to start the game, and, I saw a nice reverse touchdown pass. That was pretty cool. But then for Rocky River, the player to watch is Rashad McCollum. Had 5 sacks against Sun Valley last week. Recently lost his grandmother. He's fought through a lot of things. I'm so proud of this young man for the success that he's experiencing in his career right now. And, college coaches hopefully will be able to take notice and, shoot a couple offers his way, because he's a heck of a player and a very strong character. Really good young man. This will be a good game to check out. I think both of these teams are hungry, and once again, this is another conference opener for both teams. So obviously, this is a new start to the season, and hopefully, both of those teams can go out and play well and have a good game this Friday. All right, we got a big game right here in our next one. We got the Catawba Ridge Copperheads coming up from Fort Mill to take on the South Mecklenburg Sabres. Both of these teams are 3-1 on the season. Both of these teams have been ranked in some polls pretty highly to start the season. Catawba Ridge coming off a 21-14 win over West Cabarrus last week. And then South Meck coming off a victory last week over Cuthbertson as well. So both of these teams coming in pretty confident. This is a non-conference game, though, so keep that in mind. Our players to watch here, Marshall commit Jacoby Henderson, one of our favorites. He was a player host last year on Football Focus Weekly. He plays both sides of the ball. He can play DB and receiver. He had a strip return for a touchdown last week against West Cabarrus. A great chase down tackle. He's made several plays in the passing game. Of course, with his quarterback, Jaden Davis, the best player in his class of 2024. And then for South Meck, it's linebacker Matthew Reddick. He's not big on social media, but, he's got Division I talent and offers. I'm not sure if he's committed yet or not, but, he's a great leader for that South Meck defense, plays middle linebacker. and we ranked him the number one linebacker in the CMS best. You look at this game, man. I think both teams want to be physical. Both teams are well coached. I'm really excited not to only see the talent on the field, but the coaching battle between Coach Leniak and Coach Joe Evans. Both of those guys on the offensive side of football, both really good minds, and will scheme up some things to get their playmakers the ball in space. And it's going to be an exciting game. This is South Mex homecoming also, so I know there'll be a big crowd out there. Catawba Ridge travels well. This is not far for them, so if you're going to go to this game, get there early. For you Catawba Ridge fans, it is a 7 o'clock start here in Charlotte, so keep that in mind. And good luck to both teams for sure. Right, our next matchup is a Union County matchup. We got Monroe going on the road to take the short trip over to Sun Valley. For Monroe, the player to watch is Javion Knox, of course, star wide receiver, recently committed to Maryland. A very, very talented young man. He's got great size, great playmaking ability. He can high point the football, obviously. He's got everything you want. And then on the other side of things, for Sun Valley, the player to watch is Eric Boyd Jr. He is their leading tackler. He also plays in the secondary at the safety position. So you got a guy like Knox and you got a guy like Boyd Jr. They're obviously going to be, going up against each other all night long. So they're going to be two talented players. And, for the key for Sun Valley here is obviously for Monroe. Monroe has explosive offensive ability. You can't let them get the big play. You got to keep everything in front of you. You got to tackle well in space. Sun Valley played Rocky River last week. Rocky River has some athletes, so you're going to see a similar type of, team from a size and speed perspective. So they should have a good idea of what Monroe, is capable of for sure. All right, our next game, this is an interesting game right here. We got Pine Lake coming on the road to take on Mountain Island. Mountain Island off to a 3-0 start for the first time in their history. Pine Lake sitting at 1-1 on the season. Players to watch here for Pine Lake, it's linebacker Hudson Stadlin. This guy's had some, really, really big stats in only 2 games. He's the leading tackler by far. For every play Mountain Island runs, they're going to have to account for where he is and have a plan for him at all times. Now, on the other side of things, Mountain Island, their player to watch is wide receiver Reggie Taylor, who had a huge game last week, breaking a Gaston County record with 334 yards receiving. It's hard to do that in Madden on rookie. That's how crazy that is. But, him and Dylan Bisson obviously had a good connection going last week against Union Academy. This game is interesting because we covered this game last year at Pine Lake, and Pine Lake won this game, and it was kind of a big win for them to kind of spur them on to having their best season in school history. So, I know Mountain Island remembers that, and they're going to be motivated to go out and have a big game Friday night to try to go to 4-0 on the season. But Pine Lake, led by Coach Trotter, one of the friends of the show, has done a great job with that program. And he's going to try to go to 2-1. So, good game this Friday night up at Mountain Island for sure. All right, our next matchup is a Gaston County matchup. We have, the Forest View Jaguars going on the road to take on North Gaston. Both of these teams kind of off to a slower start this year. Some of it pandemic related, some of it, just, early season, trying to work the kinks out. But both of these teams, I think are capable in different ways. Forest View is a stronger defensive team, and North Gaston has started to put some points on the board, scoring 26 points last week against Chase, and Chase is undefeated. So, you see Coach Clark up at North Gaston making some good progress with those young kids. Players to watch, Jacob Neely for Forest View is a very talented linebacker. He was the Conference Defensive Player of the Year last year, and is a big part of their success on that side of football. And then Javion Knox for North Gaston is their leading tackler on defense. And then I think, he gets in on offense and he plays some running back as well. So he's only a sophomore. And that's the thing with North Gaston. They've got some, talented freshmen and sophomores that are, learning right now on the varsity level. And then, as time goes on and those guys grow in that program, they're going to become, a tougher team, under Coach Clark's watch, for sure. That's the way you build things, So good luck to both teams this Friday night. All right, our next matchup has Cox Mill, and they're going on the road to take on Mooresville in their conference opener. And Mooresville had a shootout with Davie County, but, came up on the short end on that. Players to watch for both teams right here. For Cox Mill, the talented defensive lineman Tyshawn Bullock, has a couple of different offers. He's a very good-sized kid, can play defensive end or, slide inside a defensive tackle if necessary. Good burst off the ball, uses his hands really well in short spaces. And then for Mooresville, it's the running back, Jawarn Howell. Really good-sized kid. I believe it's 6'3" from what I saw looking at the roster. And looking at his highlights, good explosion with the ball in his hands. He moves well in space. He's got some wiggle to him. Good running back. Good running back for Mooresville. Seems like they keep that up there a good bit. I know it'll be a good crowd. I know Mooresville's excited to be, in this, new conference setup, and so is Cox Mill. Once again, it resets the season a bit if you're off to a slower start like Mooresville did, or Cox Mill had a 3-0 start before running into a huff. No shame in losing to those guys. So they want to get back that good momentum and good mojo. So it should be a fun atmosphere at Mooresville Friday night. Hope everybody has a good game. All right, our next game is Highland Tech out of Gastonia going on the road to take on Burns. Highland Tech's off to a rough start at 0-4, and then Burns is at 2-2 and playing a lot of close football games. But Jeremiah Norris, when Burns runs the football, is the guy to watch. He's only a sophomore, but he's talented. He can do some things with the football in space. For Burns, they're trying to get off to a really good start here in this game, and hopefully get to a point where they can start working in some backup guys. In these close games, when you have so many close games, you're going to have to work on that depth because you got to spell those starters in a lot of high-stress situations when the game is close. So, it's an important game for Burns from that perspective, and then work on some things and, tighten up, those things as they get into, higher leverage games on down the road. So, hopefully both teams will come out healthy, and it'll be a good performance on Friday night. All right, our next game is Central Bears going on the road to take on Freedom. And for Central Bears, it's been a kind of a convoluted start, 0-2, and then dealing with the pandemic, trying to reschedule games and things of that nature. The player to watch is Emerson Baker, talented offensive lineman. A couple weeks ago, he had a nice Twitter post wanting colleges to check him out. Now, I know he picked up an offer, I believe, from, I think it was Bluefield, hopefully I'm correct on that. But he's a talented kid. I believe he's 6'3", 6'4", 290 pounds, I believe, if I remember correctly. Moves his feet well. He's got a good offensive tackle kind of body. That's where I think he kind of fits on the next level. But going into Freedom is never easy. Freedom with a good strong tradition up there. The thing for Central is they showed a little progress from game 1 to game 2. Hopefully with the time off, they continue to show some progress and be ready to go on Friday night and try to get a big win and get number 1 on the season for Coach Bev and those guys. So good luck to both teams on Friday night. All right, our next game is going to feature Forest Hills out of Union County taking on Montgomery Central. The last we talked about Montgomery Central was an overtime loss to West Meck in week 1 of the season. Forest Hills sitting at 2-2, kind of up and down, but I think they're playing much better football overall. Their player to watch is their running back Jordan Bennett, who's averaged about 5.5 yards a carry so far for Forest Hills this year. He's got 4 touchdowns on the season. He had one big game where he rushed for over 100 yards. So, obviously, running the football is what you want to do in wins. And, he had a big game against Union Academy, 112 yards on the ground and 3 touchdowns. So, hopefully he'll be able to go out and have another big game this week against Montgomery Central. So, good luck to both teams on Friday night, and hopefully everybody will come out healthy for sure. All right, our next matchup features Cherryville taking on Shelby, which is, not too far right down the street from each other. Cherryville at 1-2 coming into this game, and then Shelby coming off the loss to South Point, a big shootout, 51-37. Shelby doesn't lose at home very much, so, they're probably not in a good mood. But the trigger man for the Shelby Golden Lions is quarterback Dalen Lee. We did an interview with Mr. Lee not too long ago. You can check that out on our social media, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Well-spoken young man. He's got talent. He's 6'3". I think he throws the ball really well, sees the field, has some ability to scramble and make things happen. But the big thing for Shelby is just reestablishing, what they do well on both sides of the ball. They took the challenge and took on a 4A opponent out of South Carolina, which is to be commended, and they held their own. So down in the 2A ranks in this state of North Carolina, they're obviously one of the best teams, and I expect them to come out and establish that dominance once again, this Friday night for sure. All right, we got an intriguing matchup here, and this is a conference opener as well. We got Crest going on the road to take on Ashbrook. And for Crest, they've only played 2 games so far. For Ashbrook, they've only played 1 game so far. So usually, going into conference play, you want to have a little more experience on both sides of the ball and, putting your team through different, challenges and areas and things of that nature. But you got what you got. The pandemic has hurt, both of these teams, obviously. So we're going to move forward. Players to watch on both sides. For Crest, it's Mari Adams. He is a running back who had a big game last week, had a couple of touchdown runs, and I believe about 146 yards on the ground, if I remember correctly. And obviously for Crest, if you think about Crest, running the football is a big part of what they do. For Ashbrook, it's Chandler Meeks, the quarterback. Definitely a dual threat guy. He hit Carmelo Best for a couple of touchdowns against West Lincoln in their only game last week. Ashbrook is going to, get a win here. He's going to have to play well and affect the game, not only throwing the football, but with his feet, in my opinion. So, should be a good game. It's a traditional matchup between Cleveland and Gaston counties and both of these schools right here. So, it should be a good crowd. And hopefully everyone comes out healthy Friday night. All right, our next game is A.L. Brown going on the road to take on Hickory Ridge. A.L. Brown at 3-0, led by Mike Newsom, has been doing a good job with a younger team in some spots. And then Hickory Ridge coming off the tough loss to Chambers, 34-27. They were right there. They really played well in a lot of that football game. And no shame in losing to a top 15 team in the nation, according to High School Football America. Players to watch on both sides. For A.L. Brown, it's receiver Xavier Chambers. He's only a sophomore, but he's been putting up some good numbers. He's got several touchdowns on the season already. He's a leading receiver. He's got some athletic ability in space. I think A.L. Brown does some nice things with finding a way to get the ball in his hands and letting them make plays, for sure. And then for Hickory Ridge, it's quarterback Alex Bentley. What can you say about him? He was a big reason why Hickory Ridge had the success on offense they did last week. Not only throwing the football, but scrambling out of the pocket for first downs and big gainers on runs. Had a nice touchdown run in the second half to get them back into the game. Had the throwback touchdown pass to tie the game in the fourth quarter. So he's a definite weapon for the Raging Bulls. And this opens conference play once again in this new Greater Metro 4 conference. And, some people have projected this as an early de facto conference championship game. We'll see. You got to play the games. We saw last week, Friday night, anything can happen. So good luck to both teams. And, I expect this to be a fun game to watch. All right, another fun game to watch right here. Contrast the styles. We got Stuart Kramer going on the road to take on South Point. And the last time we saw South Point was against Hickory Ridge, where they lost 27-7 on the road. And then Stuart Kramer defeated. I think their last game was against East Gaston. I may be mistaken on that, but they did defeat East Gaston 28-21. Obviously, Stuart Kramer more of a passing team. South Point, they're going to do what they do. They've done it for 30, 40 years. And that's run the football if you don't know. All right, so players to watch. Wide receiver Damian Bentley, he came to the CFI camp. Talented young man, doing some big things, catching the football. I believe he had 4 catches for 140 yards in his last game. Just a big performance. And then big offensive lineman Sullivan Absher for South Point. He's got some Division I offers. Very talented young man, physical at the point of attack, which you got to be in that South Point offense. But he has the ability to pass block too, which is why he's got Division I offers at his size. Contrast the styles. Obviously, can South Point get to quarterback Justin Rockamore to prevent the passing game from being really, really strong? And can Stuart Kramer stand up to a tough inside run game that sets up their outside stuff, whether it's the toss, sweep, or the pull on the option and pitch? So, obviously, both of these teams know each other. Should be a good game out in Gaston County at South Point. All right, Cherokee coming off the mountain, coming down to take on East Gaston. Player to watch right here for East Gaston is Justice Hill, their big running back. He pairs with Markel McKinney, does a great job in that East Gaston offensive attack. East Gaston had a 1-2 start, trying to get back to 500 on the season. Cherryville is at 2-1, stepping up in class a bit. Cherokee is a big lower classification school. Up near the Cherokee is located, if you've been up to the mountains and know where the casino is, they're not far from the casino, to give you an idea where Cherokee's coming from. So, pretty cool to see this kind of matchup. You don't see it very often, so hopefully Cherokee travels well, and hopefully we have a good game Friday night, and good luck to both teams. All right, Kings Mountain is going on the road to take on Hunter Huss. Kings Mountain, this is a conference play opener for them as well, for both teams here. Their player to watch is quarterback Lamont Littlejohn, who's done a good job in leading the Kings Mountain offense so far this season. Talented young man. I enjoyed watching his film a couple weeks ago. I think he's got a bright future ahead of him for sure. And for Hunter Huss has only played one game. The pandemic has been, harder on others than some. And, this is the case with Hunter Huss right here. But Gene Neely is one of the leading tacklers for Hunter Huss at the linebacker spot. Had 7 tackles in their game against Hickory Ridge. They're playing young kids up at Hunter Huss. Kind of similar to North Gaston. Those young kids, learning on the run right now. And then down the road, that stuff will pay off. So hopefully both teams will have, a safe and enjoyable Friday night. Covering this game a couple years ago was an incredible atmosphere at Hunter Huss. So hopefully we can get that same type of atmosphere this Friday night. All right, our next game is J.M. Robinson going on the road to take on Cuthbertson. This is an interesting game right here. Cuthbertson at 1-3 is not your typical 1-3 team. I think they've played some teams tough. They've had some pandemic things they've been trying to overcome down there in Union County. And then J.M. Robinson undefeated and ranked in the Dirty Dozen. Coach Darius Robinson doing a great job with those guys. This is not a conference game. Keep that in mind. Not a conference game for either one of these teams. Players to watch right here. J.M. Robinson has an athlete in Samarion Hughes. Very talented kid on both sides of the football. Watched his highlight film the other day. When he gets the ball in his hands on offense, he's dynamic in space, especially. And then in defense, he's always around the football. I don't even know if I can give him a position. He kind of plays a little bit of everything. And, I just love, his energy on the football field. He's one of those guys that, when the team has one of those guys, it just makes everybody better. That's good stuff. And then for Cuthbertson, Anthony Goodlow, talented young man for those guys. The biggest thing for Cuthbertson right here, you got one of these teams that coming in here, Jan Robinson, undefeated, not in your conference. You almost look at it as an opportunity to make a statement. They've been battling a lot down there. I think they've played some teams tough. Just looking at their schedule right here. They had to win against Parkwood to open the season. Then, they were there against RG Kell, who's undefeated. They were there against Christian, who's a typical strong team. And then South Meck, they were in that game for most of the game. And they've played some really good teams. So, Robinson has to be careful not to get, a little complacent because they have a 1-3 record for sure for those guys. But, back to Goodlow. He's one of the best defensive players on this team. A senior, he's got 43 tackles, 3 tackles for loss. And he's been doing a good job on that side of the football for the Cavaliers. So hopefully there'll be a big crowd up down there at Cuthbertson. Undefeated team coming in there. Should be a good atmosphere. And hopefully both teams will stay healthy and have a great game Friday night. It's going to be one of those games that I'll watch on the score updates for sure. All right, our last game. Marvin Ridge out of Union County going on the road to take on Alexander Central. Alexander Central, always an interesting team to play because of that offense they run. Marvin Ridge going on to take on that challenge. I'm sure to help prepare them for Porter Ridge later on in the season. That's a good call right there. The player to watch for Marvin Ridge, though, is Nate Rawls, one of the leading tacklers for the Mavericks. He's only a sophomore, but he's been doing a good job, on the defensive side of football for that team. Marvin Ridge kind of bouncing back off of that RG Kell loss to put them at 2-1, but they're still in a good position. Obviously, this is not a conference game for these guys. Alexander Central is near the middle of the state. Marvin Ridge down in Union County. But hopefully both teams will get some good work in and stay healthy and, go into conference play with some confidence and ready to play some good football. All right, so that is Between the Lines for this week. Make sure you check out Football Focus Weekly tomorrow night for our normal show where we really get down into explaining how the playoffs are going to work this year, explaining, our rankings, of course, previewing the big games with the crew, predictions, and all the fun stuff that we always do. So, good night, everybody. Appreciate you.